for being a Democratic shield. I think all I'm saying is
people are nuts.
But I can't keep saying everybody's nuts.
They're nuts if they're saying you're a shield for the Democrats. But
I think, Tiff, that's their perspective. Yeah. And I think everything that's a different perspective isn't nuts. Like sometimes when people are so hurt and damaged, they go and do the other extreme thing, and it is not okay, and it's not cool, but it doesn't just happen politically. And I think it is irresponsible. Like, fine, you guys didn't like the video. Cool. That's not the point. If we're only talking to ourselves, that little bubble is going to continue to shrink until we suffocate. We can say that it needed to be a legitimate source. Had stuff to say about when a Washington Post article came out about Black people in Detroit not wanting to vote for Joe Biden and potentially voting for Donald Trump. When the uncommitted option came out, there were 100,000 plus people that voted uncommitted.
Hey, welcome back. Democrats, the so-called party of defending democracy, are falling in line behind Kamala Harris. They're all falling in line, one by one, behind a person who dropped out of the 2020 race before even making it to the Iowa caucuses. She's a candidate who's been undemocratically installed to take over because the candidate they voted for had no shot, no chance at beating Trump. She was coronated in a backroom deal because Joe's cover-up was blown and donors stopped writing checks.
Hey fam, okay, I just gotta say it. Given the just stratospheric entrance of Vice President Kamala Harris into the presidential campaign, and she has now secured enough delegates to become the nominee, you're gonna look real crazy being on the other side of that line, particularly as a person of color, but really as anyone who claims to have any connection to the culture. You're gonna look real weird and real lonely on that side. The door needs to close behind Amber. And she looked crazy over there. But shut the door behind her. You really are gonna look crazy being on that side, given the cultural phenomenon of Vice President Kamala Devi Harris. She's about to make history. She's about to become the first woman president. She brings together the African American community, the AAPI community, younger people. She is a whole meme. And I'm going to explain to y'all the fall of the coconut tree is a whole West Indian thing. She brings together all of the aspects of the culture. HBCUs, she's a Howard graduate. The Divine Nine, she's an AKA. She is a woman of color extraordinaire. She would be the first, person from HBCU, regular real world, to be president of the United States, in addition to being the first woman president, in addition to being the first Black woman president, in addition to being the first AAPI president. She's bringing it all. And very importantly, she will be the first woman president after the fall of Roe v. Wade.
Man, all I can do is pray for him. This has been this party's MO for quite some time. If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. And sadly, it has worked. I hope we've woken up enough that it will finally not work this year, but wow, this woman is looking straight at the camera and telling you that you can't think for yourself, that you can't make your own decision. This is nothing but blatant race baiting, as if we would expect anything different from Joy Reid. It's as if they think that they can bully folks or shame folks into supporting Harris solely because of her race or the fact that she's a woman. What has this DEI hire achieved over the years? Well, apart from putting half of California's Black population in prison, why can't we look at people's accomplishments and records? At what point does the Black community end their relationship with people like Joy Reid, who degrade and demean them into doing what they want them to do? But I got to tell you guys, it looks like it's working. People like Stephen A. Smith have had a few come to Jesus moments over the years or over the past couple of months, seeing Joe Biden. And just when I thought maybe there's a bit of an original thought there, that maybe they're getting closer to the light. Well, they've fallen in line too. Him, Charlemagne, people who've, at least from what I saw, started to at least question some of the narratives. For example, the Biden is totally fit for office narrative. They've all fallen in line like good soldiers for the Democratic Party, and it's so ridiculous to me that that is the case.
Which brings me to my next subject, because that's Vice President Harris, the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. As news spread of Joe Biden's decision not to seek re-election, high-profile Democrats were quick to endorse Harris as their favorite candidate to replace him. Some of those names include Bill and Hillary Clinton, California Governor Gavin Newsom, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, and AOC herself, a.k.a. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was once critical of both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The latest addition to the list is Nancy Pelosi, who'd been notably silent in the immediate aftermath of the news. The new energy behind the presumptive Democratic nominee has been tangible the last 24 hours as the party has raised over $50 million, according to numerous reports. Many feel the former senator and prosecutor is the perfect candidate to take on Donald Trump and the Republicans. Let me stop you right there. That ain't true. She's not the perfect candidate to go up against Donald Trump. Whether it's true or not true, I'm only talking perception. Because I got my man Roland Martin coming on later, who knows a hell of a lot more about politics than I do, that'll educate all of us about what's true and not true about her record. But the perception is, when she was Attorney General, when she was a district attorney in San Francisco, Attorney General in the state of California, there were black men incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. Sentences were stretched, et cetera, et cetera. This is what they will be said about her. Obviously, even though she was never the czar, the border czar, that's how the Republican side, the conservative side, is going to paint her when it comes to the issue of 10.5 million illegal immigrants crossing our borders since Biden took office in 2021. This is what they're going to say. And so when we understand that, and that's the reality, she is not the quote-unquote perfect candidate. But you know what she is at this moment in time? The best the Democratic Party's got. She's certainly better than Joe Biden. I don't believe she'd be better than Michelle Obama, but that ain't an option. And so that makes her the best we've got. And when you consider her prosecutor's background, when you consider her intellect, when you consider how feisty she can be, when you consider how she could pick Donald Trump apart in terms of the lies that he may tell, and she's younger by over 21, 22 years to Joe Biden. And she's been aching for this opportunity. And she's considered an individual that's been muzzled. I'd say that makes her a pretty damn good candidate. And here's the thing that I won't hold against Kamala Harris. Her performance when she was running for the presidency in 2020 and she couldn't even make it to 2 months. She had to suspend her campaign because she wasn't gaining any traction. I'm not holding that against her, but it's not just because it was 4 years ago. You know why I'm also not doing that? I'm not doing that because it's one thing to go against your contemporaries within the same party trying to prove you're the more viable candidate than the rest of your teammates. It's another thing entirely to go against the enemy, and the enemy in her eyes would be Donald Trump.
There you have it. Uniting against a common enemy. Imagine buying all the media propaganda all these years to a point where your hatred for one man blinds you to the reality of the authoritarianism displayed by your own party. And she's the best they got. We're talking about someone who couldn't even make it 2 months into the 2020 primaries before suspending her campaign. And now suddenly she's being hailed as the intellectual savior of the Democratic Party, the same party that didn't want her. Her own contemporaries are now saying she's the only viable option. This is the same woman who has been hiding Biden's mental decline for years. She knew, they all knew, and they still pushed him forward. And we, as conservatives, but really anyone with half a brain, anyone who's able to employ their critical thinking skills, can and should go after her record. We can and should talk about how she mass incarcerated Black men in California during her time as prosecutor and attorney general. We can and should talk about how her only job was basically handling the crisis at the border, and she hasn't even been to the border. If she's the best option, that's pathetic. Emotional decisions have consequences. Ask the thousands of men that are in prison right now for making poor emotional decisions. We seem to forget how this woman got here. She was a rapid fall. She was a complete failure as a candidate and was rescued only to fulfill a promise. The only reason she even became VP is because she checks their boxes.
Stick it out there.
So I got this from the group Georgia Stand Up a couple of years ago. And so you says elect Black women, fund Black women, believe Black women, invest in Black women, follow Black women, defend Black women, hire Black women, promote Black women. And so you see, they say stand up and vote for Black women. So I thought it was a perfect time to pull this shirt out.
Well, it can't get much more perfect than this. I mean, Kamala Harris now as the favorite, to say the least, because President Joe Biden has decided to step aside for the 2024, obviously for the presidency of the United States to be reelected. It's a decision I clearly supported and have supported for weeks now, Roland. When you heard the news, just give me your take and what you've been feeling over the last 24 hours since the news came down.
It was no shock. Look, for 24 days after the June 27th debate, Democrats had been attacking President Joe Biden. In fact, they hit Biden more than they hit Donald Trump. And a week after the debate, the polls were still tied. But every day, the constant barrage, media and Democrats, even after Donald Trump's horrible speech on Thursday, the Democrats were still targeting Biden. So it was no shock the polls had shifted. The polls had changed, if you will. And so that's where they were. And so he really had no choice because of the drumbeat was never going to stop. So he endorses Vice President Kamala Harris. I thought it was an obviously smart move. And you've seen how the party is coalescing around her. $80 million raised in the first 24 hours. Last night, 45,000 Black women were on a Zoom call where they raised $1.5 million. The Democrat, different delegations supporting her.
Think about that. One of the poorest demographics in the country raised $1.5 million for a lady who we know is not Black, who we also know isn't presidential, who we also know doesn't have a real chance at winning. They could have did something a whole lot more productive with that money. But that's just my opinion.
Everybody said was going to vie for the nomination. Guess what? They've all endorsed Kamala Harris. Nancy Pelosi, who won an open convention, she won support for Kamala Harris. She has endorsed her. Now, I don't know what Barack Obama.
That's where I was going. I mean, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, both of them. We haven't heard anything from them as of yet.
No. Obama released a statement.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
He praised Joe Biden, and he talked about this open convention process. That's what I'm talking. I didn't mean that we haven't heard from him. I was saying, right.
Michelle and Barack Obama neither have come out and publicly endorsed Kamala Harris for the presidency of the United States. Democratic nomination. What do you make of that, Roland Martin?
Again, I don't know what the hell's going on, but guess what? Ain't nobody waiting on them. And so, they're late to the party.
Imagine voting for someone just because she's Black and a woman and blaming the media for Biden's ouster because what? They talked about the debate. I mean, sure, it was a coordinated attack on Biden to get him out of there, but that's only the case because they've lied for so long about his mental state that they didn't have a choice. They couldn't do anything but do what they did to get him up out of there, because we all saw what happened on that debate stage. And at the end of the day, it's all about beating Trump for them, no matter the cost. They've been brainwashed into thinking Trump is the ultimate evil. So they'll rally behind anybody that isn't him. They don't care about policies, achievement, or what's best for the American people. But the elites have the final say. Cut it out, man. Don't let yourself be bullied into voting a certain way. The Democrats are insane, and they're trying to install Kamala as another puppet. We need to be vigilant because the powers that be want her in. And because of that, I don't think Trump has an easy path to the White House. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I appreciate all the love and support. Consider joining the ARP family. It supports me, it supports this team, it supports the channel. It gives us the ability to do what we do on a day-to-day basis. I appreciate each person that has joined the ARP family thus far. Thank you. God bless you. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.